Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I don't know whether you all know his name, the famous singer Mark Anthony. Mark Anthony Hernandez. Distinguished Chairman of the National Lotteries Control Board, my friend for almost 15 years, Mr. Metro Mahabir, other directors of the board of NLCB, sometimes I say NCLB, it's NLCB, management of NLCB, distinguished colleagues on the head table, members of the Ministry of Education officials, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the media. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And in just that simple opening greeting, in which one expresses a polite good afternoon, there lies a sense of what this new initiative of the Ministry of Education is all about. Good manners, civility, value-based education, which includes morals, values, ethics, etiquette. We call it the Character Education and Citizenry Development Program. Character Education and Citizenry Development Program. Around the world, character education is now being introduced as part of the school curriculum from primary level. We have a bit of it in our primary education level. This is superficially touched up to standard 3. It doesn't go beyond that. And this is what we are about this afternoon. From New York to Beijing, the story is the same. The demand for value-based education and training and etiquette training is a rapidly growing phenomenon for children as well as adults. The reason for this trend is simple. As the world is growing smaller, and while traditional values and social graces are falling away, people are beginning to understand that regardless of how well educated they are, without the appropriate social graces and an improved understanding of human interaction, it is just so much harder to make it in the real world. Around and across the world, from the United States to Singapore and China, this emerging trend in education can be seen. In fact, I just returned from a visit to Singapore close to the end of last year, where the new Minister of Education in Singapore, after 3 months, held a meeting with all the principals of all the schools in Singapore. And at the end of 2-day workshop, the headline that was blaring on the daily newspaper was that the education minister was asking the education system to begin the construct of citizenry and character development. Now, this had been in our minds for almost 20 months. But I want to thank Mr. Ernie Ross from Ross Advertising for helping to bring this concept in a more strategic perspective to the Ministry of Education through Ms. Shauna Huggins, Director of SASH Consulting. And when he came with that idea, I grasped it immediately. So we were at the avant-garde in terms of developing this before many other countries began speaking about us. In fact, China has only recently mandated that all school children undergo lessons on etiquette. This is being described as the latest concern over uncultured manners in one of the world's oldest civilizations, nearly 2 billion people, and a new economic superpower. And China belongs to one of the G8 countries, E8 countries around the world, which has more than 100 million students, primary school students, in their schools. We have 250,000 students altogether. It is reported that teachers in China will be required to instruct primary school students in the intricacies of basic decorum, respecting elders, and proper manners, including table manners. And this is from a nation whose education systems in key cities such as Shanghai and Hong Kong and even South Korea have been outstripping leading education systems in Japan around the world, according to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development tests, OECD. Integrating character education into the curriculum helps to make a child extraordinary because it teaches practical life skills, learning the difference between right and wrong, improving their social interaction and being more aware of appropriate behavior in different environments and cultures. It is defined as the ideal of raising emotionally balanced, social, compassionate individuals with a solid value system. As one research paper noted, those educators who focus mainly on test scores are in for a rude awakening when larger issues arise. For example, the child is cheating on tests or stealing from classmates. When public and parochial schools emphasize character education, their graduation is 98%, compared to the usual 50% seen in most public schools. In other words, public schools that fail to offer character education training are almost ensuring that at least half their students will be left behind. Character education is that all-important bridge in effective human connection and harmonious relationships. Just for an example, we inherited this administration, a system whereby there were 20 schools that were converted for same-sex schools. And what was the rationale for it? And these same-sex schools have failed to demonstrate any successes. In fact, they have worsened in a number of areas, including academic performance. So for far too long we have focused on the academic development of a child while ignoring teaching the basic tenets of acceptable social behavior, a value-based life, and what it means to be a good citizen. In fact, what is our education? What do you want for education of our children? Isn't it that you want our children to be able to be socially and culturally integrated into society? That a child must realize his or her own fullest potential? That a child must be mature and happy? That a child must be physically fit and well nutritioned? So all of these things, this character education will encompass. Without realizing this, these values have all but disappeared from the lives of our children who attend school today. We need to examine our education system and fill the gap, and this is what we have been doing. We are creating major paradigm shifts in our education system. And let me take the opportunity now to inform the nation that in academic year 2012-2013, 20% of the marks of the SEA will be in areas of physical education and sports, visual and performing arts, morals, values, ethics, etiquette, citizenry development, and character development. There will be projects for assessment which will contribute 20% of the marks. And in academic year 2013-14, 2013 to 2014, 40% of the SEA marks will be given to these areas. And it will be a continuous base assessment in Standard 4 and Standard 5. So it's no longer the one do-or-die examination, but 40% of the marks would have been given before the student writes the essay, and the essay will contribute only 60%. And pretty shortly after, we may be considering the creative writing aspect, which brings up with language arts and mathematics. We will create creative writing across the 2 years in Standard 4 and 5, and that in itself will be taken away from the 60%. So pretty shortly, that 50% of the marks before a student writes the essay will be given before the student does the essay. In that way, are we not creating the harmonious relationships in our children, the character education, the value-based education, the etiquette, which Mr. Ross has brought on for us today, and I'm very grateful for his assistance. This is what we at the Ministry of Education are doing at the moment, and this is just one of 16 major transformational initiatives we have undertaken in the Ministry of Education. Just one, but very important. And at the end of this, we would probably be the only nation in the world that would have gone this far as implementing this. The implementation of this program will possibly commence in 1 month's time, and it will be spread through all the primary schools. So whether we accept it or not, the responsibility of moral education has to be shouldered in our schools. We can no longer depend entirely on children learning this at home, because we have absent parents. In Standard 3, we have 60% of our students in Standard 3 in our schools at the moment with single parents. So at the barest minimum, it needs to be reinforced in an expanded curriculum, which we are ensuring, up to Standard 5, mandatory, not by the way. It is mandatory up to Standard 5 that focuses on more than just academics. So what is the point of a young person graduating with the best grades, but who is dysfunctional? We can no longer take for granted that children should know better. Who teaches them these important life skills and values? This life-changing initiative, the Character Education and Citizenry Development Program, was developed by SASH Consulting in conjunction with the Ministry of Education. Covering a range of disciplines, it is a value-based developmental program that teaches young people from as early as 6 years old, and I want to be able to bring this on for our early childhood education students as well, from as age 3 and beyond in our early childhood education centers. You know, it is the Honourable Prime Minister who indicated that she was very much desirous of bringing on the value-based education system in the late 2000s when we had to demit office. And therefore this is a continuation of a lifelong desire to ensure that this is instituted and implemented in our schools. Another of her mandates to the Minister of Education is that we must bring on universal early childhood education so that our 34,000 children between ages 3 to 5, 17,000 annual births, will be housed in a formal system in all our early childhood education centers, which I will speak about at a later time. So we want, although we're beginning this from 6 years of age, subsequently we will begin it also from 3 years of age. Basic but not crucial life skills such as respect and courtesy, conflict resolution, self-confidence, and socially acceptable behavior. Today, I'm sure you all agree with all of us that we are losing generations unconcerned with basic social graces. If this slide is not checked, we will soon degenerate into a crude, impolite, uncaring, and dysfunctional society. In a multicultural, multi-ethnic society such as ours, etiquette demands even greater consideration, as we are required to understand what is appropriate in circumstances and environments with which we may be unfamiliar. Some of these rules of acceptable behavior are sometimes unwritten, so only a course of instruction could provide an understanding and appreciation of them. Even technology has given rise to what is often described as netiquette, which applies to the appropriate conduct when using computer networks. The result of the program is a great boost for self-esteem, as these young people feel more confident to deal with any situation that may present itself. The goal is to expose as many children as possible by taking the lessons into the schools via radio and television broadcasts and use of the internet. And just yesterday, I began discussions with a large communication network team that will possibly be offering an entire television station, well, similar to CNMG or CNC3 or TV6, a TV station dedicated to the school population with its own box, and so that all these contents that we are speaking about now will be able to be transmitted across all 476 primary schools, the hundreds of early childhood education centers, and 152 secondary schools. Whatever programs we will design, example this program. So for the very first time, thousands of young people and young students will have the opportunity to learn how to behave appropriately, how to speak better, how to dress appropriately, use the telephone, walk, not jaywalk, sit, present themselves, express gratitude, resolve conflicts as well. So important. In short, they will learn values which no school environment currently provides. I'm relatively sure of it. And I wish to commend the NLCB through its own program, appropriately themed Now Let's Create Benefits, for investing in the early development of our nation's children. I thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board of NLCB. And I will be coming to you shortly as well to ask your consideration in another area that is similar to this, the leader in me, with the Stephen Covey Young Leadership Program, which will complement both areas of bringing about the leadership in our young children. So I ask you to have that at the back of your minds. You have set the tone for others to follow. It demonstrates your organization's concern and commitment towards making meaningful contribution to the development of our nation. And thank you very much. Thank you. The images of these children growing in stature and confidence as you see them becoming leaders in our society, to become well-adjusted, refined, and more aware of their social environment, will capture the imagination and praise of the national community and also the international community. The NLCB has joined with the Ministry of Education and SASH Consulting as pioneers in what will quickly become recognized as an innovative, heartwarming national initiative. In fact, graduates of the course can be used as spokespersons for the character education and citizenry development programs, living proof of what benefits the initiative will be delivering. This afternoon, I truly believe that we are witnessing the beginning of a transformational approach in our local education system, one that will reap significant benefits both in the short medium, and long term. And this will certainly ensure a social mobility and societal transformation which we long for and we are craving in our own hearts. More details of this initiative and how it will unfold will be made available within the next month as the program is integrated into the schools and given exposure to all our children. The support from this private sector for this initiative has been overwhelming and very encouraging, as everyone immediately recognizes the need and the value. It is quite appropriate, as I close, that the Character Education and Citizenry Development Program is being introduced as the nation marks its 50th Golden Jubilee Year of Independence. I can think of no better way to honor our past and dedicated efforts towards a positive future than by imbuing the next generation with the crucial values and future generations that will make Trinidad and Tobago proud. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much.